I'm having feedback. Am I heard loud enough? Does that work? All right. Okay, welcome to the Torah Midrash live stream. We start off, it's the 37th Torah portion, the Shelach, and it's Bəmīḍbar, which is Numbers for those who need English, 13, 1 through 15 through 41. And then there's the Haftarah portion, which is Joshua 2, 1 through 24, and Matthew 10, 1 through 14. If this works. And if, David, are you? David will still be doing the blessings. Yeah.
Okay. Baruch Yahweh Hamivarach. Baruch Yahweh Hamivarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Yahweh Hamivarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Yahweh. Baruch Shemo. Noten HaTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh,
Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from among all peoples and gave us his Torah. Blessed are you, Yahweh. Bless his name, giver of the Torah. Amen. And then we have the chapters 14, no, just chapter 14, that we're going to be reading. Would anyone like to read either from their Bible or what's up here? Tim? So yeah, Numbers 14, 1 through 38 is what we'll be reading.
All right. So all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in the wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us out to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us select a leader and return to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. And now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me with all the signs which I have performed among them? I will strike them with a pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they." And Moses said to the Lord, "Then the Egyptians will hear it, and for by your might you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. And they have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, and that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them. And you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people as one man, then the nations which you have heard of your fame will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring the people to the land which he swore to them, and therefore he killed them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have spoken, saying, the Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. Then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Because all these men who have seen my glory and signs, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice, they shall certainly not see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, has followed me fully, and I will bring him into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow we will turn and move into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me, and say to them, as I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so will I do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in the wilderness, all of you who numbered according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. You shall by no means enter the land which I swore you would dwell in. But your little ones whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. As for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of the days which you spied out the land, 40 days, for each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. I, the Lord, have spoken this. I will surely do this all to this evil congregation who gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be consumed, and they shall die. Now the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, whom returned and made all the congregation complain against him by bringing a bad report of land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before the Lord. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive, and the men who went to spy out the land.
Thank you. Am I still on? Okay, good. Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay. Good reading. Baruch atah Yahweh, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah tamet v'chayil amnata betachenu. Baruch atah Yahweh, Baruch Shemo, Noten HaTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, King of the universe, who has given us the Torah of truth and planted everlasting life within us. Blessed are you, Yahweh. Bless his name, giver of the Torah.
All right. So, yeah, you can all have a seat, as David usually would say. I'm probably going to forget stuff like that. But anyway, I do want to just mention, for anyone who doesn't really know, why we would read just like a little section of the whole Torah portion, even though there's the Haftorah portion, there's this entire outline. And that's because we don't have time to read it all and then also discuss it, because even in the discussion, by reading just a little, there's still not enough time. So we read a little portion so that in the hopes of throughout the years, it is eventually the whole Torah portion is read. So this week's outline is the spies are sent into Canaan, the report that the spies come back with, the people then rebel, Moses intercedes for the people, Yahweh promises judgment, Israel's defeated in a battle. Then it switches to laws about sacrifices, laws about unintentional sins, penalty for violating the Sabbath, and tassels on garments. That's just the Torah outline. Then the Haftarah outline on the right side is just Rahab hides the spies in that story. And in the gospel portion, we have the 12 apostles, and Yeshua sends out the 12 apostles. And throughout this discussion, keep in mind these three questions. Where is Yeshua in this? How is this relevant to us today? And what does this tell us about Yahweh and his character? There we go. So, a little something different I would like to try out is if someone could quickly summarize in their own words, like the Torah portion and what happens in that. Tim, go ahead.
So I would say the Torah portion, the spies are sent out to spy out the land, and most come back with a bad report, and then some come back with a good report, and then that has a consequence because it causes everybody to kind of see themselves as grasshoppers, and then it causes them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, and then it ends with making tassels or reminders on the garments of our clothes so that we remember basically that our hearts are bent on evil.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that's the Torah portion, simple words. But as we'll go through, and there's the worksheet that was sent out. If you don't have it, are there copies out for you? There are copies if you want to grab one. But are there any of the questions that you thought were interesting or you have any comments on or answers? I'm just going to open it up. And if we don't have any, I'll just start picking some. Yeah.
I like the meaning of the land flowing with milk and honey. And what I got from that, just reading the Torah over and over, I just look at it as the land is rich and fertile, and the soil is ready for planting. It's good for planting. And it also produces a lot of produce, like the grapes, or the cluster of grapes means eskol, and also a place to raise livestock. So it just sounds like a beautiful land. And then Joshua and Caleb said that it was an exceeding good land, and I would go with that. Yes, despite all the giants, because everywhere we go, even in the world today or in our lives today, there's going to be uncertainty and adversity around us, and so that's why our faith needs to be strong and know that as long as we have Yahweh by our side, He's always with us, He helps us, and our hearts every day are just filled with gratitude, and He always gives us mercy, if we fail or stumble. And so that's what I got from the land flowing with milk and honey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was question 3, if anyone was wondering. Any other thoughts? Where's Zach? Wanna?
So there were 12 tribes sent out. 12 spies sent out because there are 12 tribes, so one from each tribe. And Caleb and Joshua, very interestingly, Caleb comes from the tribe of Judah, and Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim. And so it's very interesting for us, considering our approach or our look at the Torah and where we come from, that we believe kind of the two houses of Judah, which are the Jews, and Ephraim, which are those of us who are not Jews but are Israel, that we believe are from Ephraim. So it's like those two tribes kind of in leadership there for following Yahweh and for trusting in him.
Yeah. Something I would like to add to that question, though, is was a spy sent out from every single tribe? Because there's someone missing, actually. If there's someone from Ephraim and Manasseh, which both come from Joseph, so who's the missing tribe?
Yeah, there are 13 tribes, and the tribe of Levi doesn't get a vote in these things. They don't get to vote for president or that kind of thing. So Levi doesn't send a spy, and then out of Joseph come Manasseh and Ephraim. That's how we see that Joseph got the double portion, because his bloodline gets a double vote on everything in Israel.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So this is about faith and lack of faith, and it shows that lack of faith is sin. How they go in and most of them were scared, and how they convinced, 1 million people or whatever to be scared. Mm-hmm. It's like fear is a plague. And the lack of faith. That's why one reason we need to gather together every week is to be around other people with faith, because that catches on with us. That builds our faith. And when you spend your time with the world, you could end up losing your faith. Nowadays, we fear what's going on with the country or the government, or wars that are happening. And Yahweh does not want us to fear or grumble and complain about these things, because we should have faith and joy in his salvation. They saw all these miracles happen, and yet they still were afraid to go into the land. And Yahweh tells them to go in, but then when Yahweh tells them not to go in, they go into the land. But it's us today. I mean, we do these same things. Mm-hmm. And there was interesting. They named the 12 leaders, and they went in, and most of them doubted. And then we got in the the New Testament, we have 12 disciples going out, but there's only one that had the lack of faith. Mm-hmm. And Rahab, and how that ties in with the Haftorah, is Rahab. She didn't even see those miracles. She heard about those miracles that happened, and she had faith that they were going to take over the land. So she was saved through faith.
Yeah. Right. Lindsay? Lindsay has a...
Okay. So when I was reading it, something I noticed this time was that the spies that were sent out weren't just some random people. They were chiefs from each tribe. Mm-hmm. That's what I heard. And these people were probably respected and trusted. So when they come back with a bad report, that must have been terrifying for the people, because these people that are supposed to be their leaders in a way are telling them this is not a good land. So it would be really hard, and it would take a lot of faith when only 2 men out of the 12 spies were saying that this is a good land. So I was also thinking, is it possible that God was testing them to see if they were ready to go into the land, and if they had enough faith to stay obedient to him, even in a very comfortable land?
Excellent question. I think I saw Tim. Well, we got 4 people, so I mean, I'll just start with Aspen. You can go ahead.
kind of do an overview of what Darren was saying. This is actually a really interesting and prescient portion within Scripture, because here you see an active lesson on believing in God and believing in man. The people who they believed in, the men who they believed in, they were loyal to God. They were praising his name. The people who turn traitor, who God refers to as evil, are busy praising his name at the same time. I guarantee you this. God gave them clear instructions. We get clear instructions all the time. But our own human nature comes in, whether it's fear, whether it's doubt, whether it's rationalizing our sin. We do the same thing as these people. We turn on those who say, this is the word, this is the law, this is what God says, and we say, kill them. Now it's funny, God says, though, these guys are going to survive, right? But they were saying, stone these people to death for following what God had instructed them to do. Now later on, like Darren said, there's a response. When the punishment gets handed down and they say, wait, we can't enter now, we're going to immediately try to do it by our own hands. This is, again, them trusting in man, not trusting in God. This is twice now that they have, while praising God's name, done the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. This is something I can do, you can do, any of us can do at any given moments within our lives. And we need to stop and have enough prescience, move slowly when we have those times when God's word's in play in our lives, and say, where do I go? What do I do? How carefully do I step? And do I want to be seen as evil before him because I'm listening to men who maybe those men will call upon God's name, but I'm not listening to them. And that's how we can get in a lot of trouble. I've done it myself. I know. I've been there.
Yeah. Then Don, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking here at verse 18 and 14, where it says, Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving the iniquity of the transgressions. And I think how merciful that he has been through these people and shown all these miracles all the time. And yet, it seems like we so quickly forget some of the things that God has done for them or even in our lives, and we don't give thanks. And yet he says here, Joshua, my servant Joshua, he is a person with a different spirit. Mm-hmm. God is looking for people with a spirit in him that's going to glorify and trust and follow God at his commands. And I think that is pretty unique, because those people, those 10 that had a poor report, they said they were plagued and they died. Apparently, those went in there. They probably died very quickly after that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it says at the end of the portion, I believe, that we're reading, that they're just struck down with a plague. But yeah. Jim?
This, I heard an interesting podcast this past week, and it talked about the morality of spying. This person used to be a spy during the Cold War in this discussion I was listening to, and they claimed to be a Christian, which was interesting to think about. And you kind of see the same morality and ethics question in this Torah portion is, is spying justifiable? And is it okay to deceive? If you think about Rahab deceived, and then also so did the spies too. Mm-hmm. Because I bet if they ask, they're not going to tell the truth. Say, oh yeah, we're here spying out the land. Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting, and especially with the Haftorah, which is Joshua, it's the same thing. It's spying. Mm-hmm. So it brings up this question: is what's greater? Is it okay to deceive if there's a greater purpose? Yeah. I think we have a more modern example is hiding Jewish people. Yeah. During the Holocaust, are you going to say yes, you have Jews, or are you going to preserve life? a lot of interesting questions, especially the biblical example here.
Yeah, that's most of what the questions I have for the Haftarah portion. Moral dilemmas. Caden?
I would actually like to add something a little bit onto what Lindsay was mentioning earlier. So when they were entering the land and had the spies come and check it, there was actually another interesting situation they had, because all of them said the land was overflowing with milk and honey, which, well, it's obviously a metaphor, because it's not like there was rivers of skim milk. The point was that it was a bountiful land with a lot of potential. They all agreed upon that, but 10 of them, being afraid of the fact that they weren't going to be able to take over the land, led to them not being able to enter.
Right.
Interestingly, though, they had actually had a situation where they had already fought with these people and succeeded. And it wasn't by their military strength or anything. It was simply by God helping them. That's where the whole keeping the arm up story came from. It was them fighting against those same people. Yet they still didn't have trust in God enough to be able to say, okay, well, he's going to help us succeed regardless of what our odds were. Interestingly enough, I don't even think that the scouting was really so much about figuring out the military might of the people they were going against, because while that helps, they still should have had enough trust in God that he would have carried them through. I mean, at this point, they had been through so many situations where God had already just carried them through any sort of battles they had, regardless of the odds difference.
Yeah. Aiden?
Yeah. Just a thought I was having. It seems to be a recurring part through a lot of the scriptures I look at. And it's on the common notion of lukewarmness. We are told that we can't be 50-50, right? And I think that this story speaks testament to that. Because what we have is the 12 chiefs of the tribes, right? They're all sent out. They're all supposedly believers, and they're all sent out to go investigate. And then they should be having this faith in God, right? He should provide everything they would need to win the battle or whatever it may be. However, kind of like my dad was saying, we begin to rely on man, and we begin to doubt ourselves. And so that caused one division to spiral to quite a few of them, to where only 2 actual true believers remained. I would make the argument that these 2 are actual believers because they stayed through the tough times, as to where the others could be considered lukewarm. Because when things got hard, who did they go to? Well, they went to human nature. They went to themselves. They didn't rely on God. They just kept on coming back to what they knew.
Yeah. Really good insight.
So this Parsha really speaks to me about the battle for the mind. Because they go and they say, there are giants in the land. There are giants there.
Yep.
And these giants are not without essence, without their own power that they're admitting out. But I'm looking at my notebook here, and it's a real simple phrase. It says, faith is not believing that God can. It is knowing that God will. And that was the difference. They knew God could.
Yeah.
But they didn't have, the mind wasn't completely given to him saying, but he will. He said he will, so
Right.
we're okay. And we got to really give the mind completely to him and his ways. And sometimes we hold it back. We think, well, he's got the soul. He wants the mind too.
Yeah.
Yeshua HaMashiach.
Go ahead. Oh, it's not on. You gotta flip the switch, yeah. You can switch out Zachary.
Hello? Oh, now it works.
Okay.
I want to go over number 6 on the first page in chapter 14.
Yeah.
I thought, I want to search this for myself. What were these 10 times the children of Israel tested Yahweh? Well, I had to keep going back. I was looking in 14. Wait a minute, there's still more. And so I ended up at the end of chapter 13, starting in 31, and then I'll go on 14, probably up to about verse 12. Okay, so I wrote, this is where the bad report starts. The 10 spies, I mean, have they forgotten the miracles and the power that God has and what he can do?
Yep.
So they just start complaining, number one, against the people. Oh, we're weak. They are stronger than we are. And so they brought the evil report. And then number two, the inhabitants of the land are devouring. They're going to devour us. And then number three, the Nephilim, there's giants in the land. And we ourselves look like grasshoppers by comparison. And look that way at them too. And they forgot how big and powerful Yahweh is. And then number 4 and 14, the children of Israel, they grumbled against Moshe and Aharon. The whole congregation said to them, we wish we had died in the land of Egypt. I think that's number 5. Or we had died in the wilderness. And then number 6, Yahweh brought us into this land to die by the sword so that our wives and children should be taken as booty. So isn't it better for us to return to Egypt? They said to one another, number 7, let us choose a leader and return to Egypt. Wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture here. A leader in Egypt? No, just look up. And Yahweh is the leader. He's the one that leads us with it. Have you forgotten there's a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night? He's there with us 24/7. So he is our true leader. And then number 8 in verse 9, they rebelled and they had fear. Talk about a stiff-necked, faithless, fearful group of people here. And then number 9, I think I got 9. They were fearful. And then verse 11, and Yahweh said to Moshe, how long will these people provoke me? Because they would provoke him to anger. And mainly number 10, because they were in disbelief. Mm-hmm. So they have quite a bit of repenting to do and turn to their Creator and think twice. No, I don't think I need a human leader to lead us back in Egypt. So they really need to look up to Yahweh. They need to trust in him more and repent of their thinking. They need to have their minds renewed.
Yeah. Well done. I didn't quite find all 10. I was just thinking back to major events like the golden calf. That was not necessarily a test, but definitely a disbelief. But yeah, you found 10 within just the portions. Well done. I know someone else had their hand up. No? You can? Okay, you are then.
Okay. Back to the other thought on what she was talking about. I just wanted to further my point of the lukewarmness and how it can apply to our modern day. Because if you look back in Scripture, there's a lot of examples of they had gods for everything, right? If they needed it to rain, they would go to a god. If they needed more food or plentiful harvest, they would go to a god. But as society has progressed, I would say the study of Scientology, how we've created methods ourselves as humans to kind of recreate what this blessing would do. So if we needed it to rain, well, now we don't really need it to, because now we have sprinklers, or
Yeah.
And it's we have a lot of these solutions. If we need pleasure, we have all the entertainment ever. all that we would ever need. And so I think especially in our modern society, it becomes 10 times harder to rely so much on God than it was back then, because we have so many more replacements that make it hard to want to choose him over everything else that we've created as man.
Yeah. Still really good insight. You all right? Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to share, one thing that I wanted to share about is, like the fear of man. Like it says, like, with men it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. One of the issues that I run into is that when I look at some men, they do seem like more like Jesus to me. They do seem like they have a deeper understanding. They do seem like their prayer life is better. They do seem more courageous. When I think about how I see them and then I look at myself, I'm like a very fearful, anxious, avoidant. I have a lot of fear in my heart. And like the courage that it would take to believe that God is going to work through me, right? Like Joshua, Joshua had come to a place where Moses isn't going to go into the promised land. I am, and so you have this human being who is not only great in their culture, but has been great since their culture. Like when Jesus was walking, they were still talking about Moses. They said, well, you put he's going to be the one who judges you then, right? Or maybe that's Abraham. But he was still a big figure. But here's Joshua. He can't look at this man. He's got to be faithful to God. And then not only are there more godly men than Joshua, but then there's people 12 feet tall that they've got to conquer.
Yeah.
And then we think it's we think we can look at Joshua's circumstance and be like, well, you saw the flame and the fire that whole time. How could you possibly be fearful? And yet in our personal lives, right? I think there's a lot to say about the amount of faith that God requires. I mean, when Joshua led him into the promised land, he said, if Joshua would have given him rest, it wouldn't have spoke about another day. They had to still wait for Yeshua. It still wasn't enough courage to lead him into where Yeshua led him into. And so I think it's and when you're saying about how when we're not faithful, we're in sin. Well, when have we ever demonstrated a faith that's like Joshua's? When have we ever looked at this crowd of this huge, amazing array of hosts of armies and military prowess, and we had no fear because our God said that He's given us a promise? When have we really personalized that? When have we really seen that? And have I seen it in myself, or do I see it in other men doing it? Right? Like, if I'm only seeing it in my other men and we reason together, that's not me putting my faith in Yehovah Elohim. And so I have a hard time breaking past the Jesus that I see in my brothers in order to see the Jesus who's being proclaimed from heaven.
A lot of good thoughts. Yeah.
The one other point that struck me is because I think when you look at the situation, if I'm looking at myself, what I can do, like you said, what you said, with man it's not possible. I can't conquer them, but with Him I'm a majority. With Him I can move mountains. I can do things I can't do. I'm not doing it. And I think of this like when I'm in a smaller scale in a work environment. there's one employee who comes forth and they try to take authority where it hasn't been granted. And they struggle and they lose the war. Yet you see another employee come in and do the exact same thing, but they didn't self-appoint. They were appointed by the authority. You will work in this capacity. Now all of a sudden they're doing the same things, but it's working for them because you don't self-appoint as a leader. You're chosen. And that's kind of where these guys were at, is they're looking at themselves and saying, well, you want us to overtake. And specifically, God doesn't want us to overtake. He wants us to show that by obedience and submission, he fights the battle for us.
Yeah. My thought, or what I've kind of gathered, is like all of the leaders almost had like imposter syndrome, where they didn't feel like they should have been in their position, right? Even Moses didn't feel like he was ready to lead the Israelites way back in Exodus. And every leader since then is just like, I don't think I can do that. And they turn out they can, right? But most of the spies were appointed, right? They could do it, but they just didn't think they were capable of, and with that mindset, they weren't capable of it. Yeah. Any other thoughts? William? Yeah, we got one, and then you can come back.
Just thinking about the questions you mentioned at the beginning of how do we make this relevant in our life today, and something that keeps coming to mind is the current state of the world right now. We all know and realize it's not good, and we're asking Yahweh to deliver us and for his will to be done. But it's very interesting to me that I see a number of people, of believers in this situation, saying we're going to pray to Yahweh to make this situation better and to fix everything of our government or where we live and what's happening around us. But for me, I almost feel like our eyes should be on our promised land, on where we're going, where we're headed, and that maybe a part of where people failed wasn't always just faith, but also being comfortable where they were at, or what situation they were at, or what was known to them, like always saying we'll go back to Egypt, to just feel like, oh, that's a comfortable place. I know there were bad things happening. I was a slave, but I was comfortable. And that maybe we, even though we know there's bad things going on, we know that this could be a comfortable place for us, and maybe we want it to be that way rather than saying, okay, let's go through the really hard, terrible things to get to him coming and taking us home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me makes it more relevant to what I'm living in. And I thought one thing that stood out to me also that in this part is when they brought that bad report and said, we're as grasshoppers in their sight. All the congregation, chapter 14, verse 1, lifted up their voice and cried, and they wept all night. I mean, that was some serious group psychosis or something. And that we have to be so careful of that.
Yeah. David?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm really appreciate. It's kind of fun being able to just sit here and relax. But I'm really enjoying a lot of the sharing. I'm learning a lot and processing what you guys are all doing. I think it's fantastic. One thing that when we were during the week, Levi and I were going over this stuff, because Levi wrote all this stuff out. We just went over it here and there and stuff. One of them that I had fun with was the scholar question in the gospel. So that would be number 2. There it is. In the Bible, certain numbers occur very often. What is the significance of the number 12 throughout the Bible?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were chatting about that too. And, think it's you, Jim, that would said, God is such a God of order when he looked at how he organized the camp and moving several million people as they marched around the wilderness and stuff. And I'm seeing the number 12 also. It's like God picked that. One of the numbers he picked was that. It has to do with governance, governing. And I'm remembering, we got the 12 tribes. We also have the 12 disciples. And then one thing that Yeshua told them was, you're going to judge or actually govern the 12 tribes, the 12 disciples will. And then you also see the number 12 in the New Jerusalem, and the disciples' names are on the foundations of the gates that go in and out of the city. And these have walls. You can't get into the city unless you go through one of those gates. That's the only way you can do it. And then the millennial temple, I forgot about that one when we were talking. But the millennial temple, where Yeshua is going to be reigning on earth, there's a brand new temple in Jerusalem, and it has 12 gates. And I believe those have the names of the tribes over them. So it's like 12, 12, 12. I don't know about you, but it really stands out to me on that.
Yeah. Any other comments? Aiden, keep going.
Yeah, question number 12. Why in the Torah does it constantly repeat, I am your Elohim? I think the answer could be very simple, whereas it almost just acts as a firm reminder, because it's very hard to dedicate yourself to something, especially the unseen. That's one of the hardest parts about faith is, for all intents and purposes, we cannot see God. We can see something he's done. We can see the effects that he's had, but we can't see him. And so I think the reason it's constantly repeated, especially in the time of the Torah, would be, one, that there are other gods. And I doubt God would want himself to be mistaken for another God, because God encompassed a lot of things that the other little g gods would attempt to replicate within their bounds. So I think in simple, it's a firm reminder. It's a constant reminder, because, it's even the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. The first one, and later on it's do not make idols. We so easily can put things above God and take things out of perspective, that I think it makes sense for it to repeat it so much, because it's probably one of the most significant parts.
Yeah, I like that. Zachary, yeah, Liam, you want to run over? And sorry if I don't remember people's names. They just kind of, wander off when you're up here, so.
So
yeah.
I'm connecting up, okay, so if I'm in a situation and he's saying, okay, you're going to go to war and you're going to fight these giants over here, okay, it occurs to me that they're coming back with this bad report, saying, oh, well, no, he doesn't really want us to go there. There must be an alternative. There must be an easier, softer way. And I think we do that. The world offers us, well, there's got to be an easier, softer belief. It's all going to be nice. You got to be nice all the time. Put on your mask and be nice. And don't speak hard truth to me, because now you're hurting me. Or I'm not feeling good about it, so you're trying to make me feel bad. And we serve Elohim, and he is, and he's made it clear, I do not change. I'm not a man that I should lie. If it's hard for you, then you got to pull it together and man up, because I know what I made you out of. You're going to do this.
Yeah. What I found interesting was when they come back with a bad report, it's more of just they don't think that they're capable of winning, right? but they all agree, like 13:27, they all say that, yes, it's a place flowing with milk and honey. They acknowledge that the place is good, but there's some giant. That's the problem. And they give a very discouraging report, like, yeah, we don't think we can get what they have because they already got it and they want to keep it probably. Rolly, you have? I'm gonna call on you.
Yeah, I definitely have a microphone.
Yep.
I've had way too many things to say, and I don't want to say. I have a microphone. I think they all agreed. Well, they all agreed the land was good, but I also think they all agreed that they couldn't win, like just themselves.
Yeah.
Like, yes, but some of them were like, oh, all that we have are ourselves. Like, they don't even think, oh, our God might help us. I don't know. We're not. I think they all understood that they're not going to win a fight against a bunch of giants, but only 2 of them understood that they're not the ones fighting the giants, and they also were assured that you don't. I don't know. They were assured that they would win against whatever they come across because, I don't know. It's 30-minute pizza delivery. You're guaranteed to get it. You just don't know how they're going to get there, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might climb across rooftops.
What's interesting, if I can remember what I was going to say, now I'll continue. Yeah, we can do Heather, Laura, and then if we got time. Is that okay? Because I haven't seen much from, yeah.
I just wanted to bounce off what Raleigh said there. Numbers 14:24 says, "My servant Caleb, because he has had a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring him into the land which he entered, and his descendants shall take possession of it." Point being, a different spirit. And that's where we need to be focused.
Yeah. Laura, and I think we'll be just about done, or after, yeah. So Laura, and then Jan. Yeah, okay.
I appreciate what Kathleen, right? That's your name? I appreciate what Kathleen said, and going back to the, they believed that God could do it, but did they believe that God would do it? And I think that we all face this regularly, whether it's in work, or it's in friendship, or it's in marriage, or we all face a thing where we say, oh, we believe God can redeem this. It's a matter of, will he redeem it? And the reality is that he says he will redeem a thing, but if we don't do our part, he doesn't have to redeem the thing. And this situation shows us that they did not have the belief. They were not willing to believe that he would. They did not take the steps that showed that they believed that. And we encounter this all of the time. And when you're talking about being nice and saying the hard things and taking the next step and doing the thing that we're being asked to do by the Lord in order for him to redeem a situation, instead they sat back, complained, didn't believe, and he goes, guess what? I'm not going to redeem it. And I think that we can have a situation even between 2 people where it requires both people to redeem a situation together, and we don't get to control the other person, but if we're still willing to do what God's telling us to do, even if the other person isn't, God will still redeem us. It just might not look the same as redeeming both in
Right.
a situation. So we have some responsibility, and he's not required to redeem a thing when we don't do what
Yeah.
we're being asked to do.
So, I remember what I was trying to say. What's interesting is when they don't think they can win, right, and they give their bad report, later, once they're punished with 40 years of wandering and they're going to die, they have an attempt, or they attempt to attack the city and get beat up quite badly. So, like, they were kind of right, but of, not believing, they weren't going to be able to do it, but it's weird that they now thought that they could still do it after they told everyone that we can't do it. That's very backwards, but yeah.
I want to go over the bonus question on 12, the phrase, I am Yahweh or Elohim. I just thought that through, and I have a verse in the end to share. I look at him, he's the only true Elohim. He's sovereign, he gives us strength. He's always by our side. He's the only one that we can look up to and depend on. And he's the creator, and what he can do, that I found in Isaiah 40, verse 12. And this is just really awesome. He's measured the waters in the hollow of his hand and meted out heaven with a span and comprehended the dust of the earth in a measure and weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in the balance. Nobody else can do that except our Creator. But I just wanted to read that. But yeah, that verse stood out on what he can do. So he's all powerful, and he's the one that we look up to and depend on.
Yeah. Well, I do think we're out of time, but those of you who do have more comments can probably talk with me or someone with the couple minutes that we have of break. So yeah, we'll take a 15-minute break till 11:30, and we'll be back. But yeah, thanks y'all for discussing, giving input, and we'll be back. Yeah.